I almost didn't record any of this because I'm so frustrated. I need to make parts. I have parts that need to be cut. This is the material that I'm working with. You can see the machine is a little bit messy right now. The problem is my machine stopped working yesterday. This machine is like 18 years old. I got it pretty heavily used. It was pretty cheap when I bought it. So far, I haven't really had any major maintenance issues with it. There was a little bit of weirdness with the touch probe. There was a little bit of weirdness with the tool changer, but those were just like regular maintenance tasks that needed to be caught up on. Well, last night at about midnight, we ran into an actual real alarm. So I'm gonna see if I can get that sorted out today. I'll see if I can show you what it does here. Part of me is hoping that it'll just work, but when I go to home it, the y-axis, so the y-axis is not moving, and whenever I try to move it, I get the y-axis servo error to large alarm. If I turn on the ability to jog the machine while it is unhomed, and I go into jog mode and try to jog the y-axis, it doesn't make any sounds, it doesn't make any attempts to move. It just eventually gives me that alarm again. I was really hoping it would magically fix itself overnight, because these parts theoretically need to ship today. There's no way, even if the machine was working right now, I wouldn't have time to get them done today before FedEx closes. But if I can get them done and shipped on Monday, that would be ideal. I did some basic troubleshooting last night. This machine has a 4th axis drive, so I switched out the connectors and I switched the drives. So the y-axis was running off of the a-axis drive, which I guess I don't know for sure that drive works. I guess that's another troubleshooting step I could do. But that change didn't seem to affect anything. The only progress I had, and this is what I think is going on here, if we look at the back of the machine, there is some loose wires down there that go into the motor. I don't know why those are disconnected, but they are. I guess they were probably yanked at some point. And at some point yesterday, I disconnected these connectors and reconnected them. And that was the only thing that ever got me movement out of the machine. It didn't last very long, but I got a little bit of movement. I have a few simple, quick, and easy things left to check before we go into full, like, hardcore troubleshooting mode. So I'm gonna knock out those easy checks. And if none of those work, then we're gonna go about this systematically. Worst case scenario, I think we replace the y-axis servo or the drive. It is possible that the a-axis drive didn't work either, since I haven't been able to test it. So it could be the servo, it could be the drive. Everything else should be relatively cheap compared to those two options. So the last quick, cheap, easy thing I have in terms of just flailing before hardcore troubleshooting is I'm gonna clean out these connectors really well and check all of the wired connections here. Off the bat, those connectors seem fine. I didn't see anything obviously wrong with them. They weren't particularly dirty, but even after cleaning them out, they still seem fine. And the machine still isn't working. So let's go into troubleshooting mode. I don't know if you guys can read this, but this is basically how our system works. So we have the controller. The controller talks to the drives and it listens to the encoders. The drives, they talk to the servos, and then the servos spin the ball screws, which spin the encoders. Actually, I don't know if the encoders are in the motors or connected to the ball screws. Either way, those are directly coupled by some mechanism. And then the ball screw, of course, moves the table. Now, any one of these components could be the issue, and any of the links between them could be the issue. I'm not sure this chart helps at all, but it helps me think. So we'll need to test this later, but I don't think my drive is the issue. I don't think my controller is the issue. I don't think my encoder is the issue. I think it is something around the servo here, either how it's communicating to the drive, or it could potentially be how the encoder is communicating to the controller. But again, I don't think it's that. I think it is somewhere here with the communication between the drive and the servo. So my first hypothesis is this wiring here is bad. So we are going to do some tests and see if we can learn anything there. So hypothesis 1, the wiring between the servo and the drive is bad. I think the only way I'm gonna be able to check that is by taking out the servo. So we get to start there. Nothing can ever be easy, can it? So I got the cover off here. That covers the coupling between the motor and the ball screw. I may or may not have gotten that screw loose. I'm not super sure. I'll play with that in a bit here. However, there's just 4 more screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, that keep the motor mounted to the motor mount, I suppose. Except I broke off the ball end of my Allen wrench inside that screw. The screw didn't break, the ball end of my Allen wrench did. And I haven't been able to get that out yet. I've tried blowing air in there. I've tried prying it out. I tried drilling it out, but it's hardened, so drilling it didn't work. And I'm starting to run out of ideas on how to get that out. So I'm gonna try a few more things here, but nothing can be easy, can it? I can't believe this worked. So right there's the ball head of that Allen wrench. I tried so many things to get that out of there. What I ended up doing is putting super glue on the end of this piece of plastic. I put activator on the ball head and I glued it to it. And I glued the stick to the ball head. And then once it was cured, I just yanked it out. So now, hopefully, I should be able to get that off. Though I'm switching from my nicer set of Allen wrenches to a Harbor Freight adapter. Will it work? Hey, all right, easy peasy. Okay, so I'm not sure yet if I have the ball coupler disconnected, but if I do, the motor should be ready to come out. Oh, and I ground down the end of this Allen wrench, so it's not a ball Allen wrench anymore, but it should be, well, I mean, it is the right size for removing screws, which is, I guess, what Allen wrenches do. All right. And you can see some of the white gunk that the previous owners of this machine ran. I was told this machine was used for acrylic exclusively. I'm not sure I believe them based on this white gunk. Some other people who have bought machines out of the same plant have said that it was used for ceramics, and I have a feeling this is ceramic gunk. The difference is this machine I haven't had any backlash issues with, and everybody else who has bought a machine from the same company has had those backlash issues. All right, so our motor's free to turn here, but okay, so I need to work on that coupler a little bit more. In retrospect, I don't actually think I had to remove that screw. I think it just was able to slide right out. I got the motor out, and this is the other end of the coupler, and we can actually eliminate a possible cause of our failure, and that is that the table is somehow getting bound up. But I can turn this ball screw with one finger, so that seems unlikely to me. So I don't think it is any sort of binding in the ball screw or the table, which means it means it's probably something electrical. It doesn't seem to be something physical. So that is at least one thing off our list. So basically down here, we confirmed that the ball screw is working, and so we've eliminated that half of the tree, and I'm pretty comfortable in saying these connections are good as well. So now we just need to figure out what it is up here. And we're still testing this hypothesis. So let's go take a look at that motor and see if we can learn anything. So these loose wire connections here are why I think it's an electrical issue. Because it wouldn't take very much to screw up some connection when they're that loose already. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up first, and then hopefully I can take it enough apart to try to fix whatever's going on there. My prayers are that we open this up and there's just like a wire that's popped out of a connector and we solder it back in, or something like that. That's what I'm hoping for right now. Oh look, we can stop troubleshooting now. The motor is labeled as good. So this must be a replacement motor that they put in sometime. possibly refurbished or salvaged from a different machine because they labeled it good. I'm wondering if that's true right now, but oh, that's hilarious. I am noticing here there's also a nick in the wire here. That must be going to the motor itself. There's 3 cut wires in there, but I think that's just because this has more conductors than it needs. This one has 1 million wires. That must go to the servo, or excuse me, the encoder. But all right, let's pop this sucker open. And for the record, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. The first step of troubleshooting is just getting over yourself and trying to figure it out. By nature, if you're troubleshooting, it means you don't know what the problem is or what you're doing. So don't be afraid to try to fix things, folks. I don't know what I'm doing. And if I can do it and I don't know what I'm doing, if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably smarter than me and you can do it too. I was able to get the cap off here and expose the encoder underneath. And I'm not seeing anything obvious, which is unfortunate. I'm going to take my multimeter to it and see if I can find any breaks in these wires. Okay, all of the connections from this connector to this connector are good, unfortunately. Okay, I put the motor back together and I got it kind of loosely hooked up here to the machine. Obviously it's not installed. And just with some initial playing with it, I've gotten some kind of interesting results. So, all right, I've cleared it. I have it so it's set so I can jog without homing. You see that? It kind of moved and then it aired out. So that's strange. It moves just a little bit and then freaks out. And I can't get it to do it every time. So let's see, I reset the air and I can feel it resisting me. There's a little bit of a jiggle in there. And I can turn it and then it'll throw an error. It'll say servo overload. Yeah, servo overload. Nope. So I don't know what this is about or what this means. I may have to ask somebody smarter than me. So I'm calling that experiment inconclusive at the moment. We've proven that maybe some of the wiring is okay, but there's still a lot of other wiring between the motor and the drive that we haven't been able to verify yet. So I'm going to do another experiment here that'll help us test 2 different things. My hypothesis right now is that the motor is bad and that the wiring is good. So basically we're testing the opposite of this hypothesis. We're going to do this test by taking out the x-axis motor and swapping it with this one. If the x-axis motor works, that proves that our wiring is good and this motor is bad. So our second hypothesis, why motor bad? We need to test that one. Okay, I ran into another unexpected error. So this is the y-axis motor. The power connector on here is male. This is the x-axis motor. The wire connector on here is female. And so I can't just plug one into the wires and make it work. I'm gonna have to replace that connector or something. I found it, I think I found it. I think I found the cause of our issues. I went to solder the new connector onto this wire, and when I pulled it out, well, I pulled it out. The whole wire came off, which means there should be enough wire left in here to solder it back together. That's big. That's big. That's big. That's big. I think that means we don't have to spend $5,000 on a motor. So that's good. All right, this was the Y-axis motor. It is now plugged into the X-axis since I swapped the plugs that I was talking about earlier. And I've already tried this, but look what happens when we take this out of e-stop. See that? It's buzzing a little bit, and the one back there is buzzing, but it is working. It's buzzing because the motor was tuned with the mass of the machine on it, and without that mass, it just vibrates. It doesn't have enough mass to dampen itself. It's underdamped, and because of that, it's a vibrating control loop. So I think we have it fixed. I'm going to get this put back together, and then we'll see if we can run the job that was due yesterday. I did talk to the customer, and they said they are fine with the shipping on Monday. So today is Friday? Today is Friday. So I'll have Saturday, Sunday, and then most of Monday to get it finished up. All right, let's try this for the first time. Let's see if it homes. Door is open. Okay, fine, I'll close the door. Let's see if it homes. Door is open. Oh, it's not. Oh, yeah, it is. Here. We'll override the door. Let's try this again. All right, will it home? Well, that doesn't sound good. So the Y-axis motor here is moving, but it seems awfully unhappy about it. And if we look up here, the load is like between 0 and 100%. Let's stop that so we don't hurt it. I guess this is progress. So remember, we know that that motor is good. That was the motor from the X-axis, which wasn't having problems. My guess is something is misaligned a little bit, and maybe something to do with the shaft coupler. So I'm going to take it back apart and see if I can see anything obvious. I found the issue. I got excited, and I didn't get it on camera because I got excited. But if we look over here, if we turn off the emergency stop and hit the home button, it homes. We're good. There's no angry buzzing sound. We're okay. The problem that was causing the screeching was a little bit embarrassing. I didn't tighten one of the motor coupling screws, like the one that holds the motor coupling onto the shaft. And so that screw was like rubbing the edge of the housing, which was causing the servo to freak out. So as soon as I tightened that screw and put it back together, it's working. We're golden. So I think I have a couple screws back there I need to button up, but then I can see if it makes chips. Well, I think I'm declaring the machine fixed, or at least I'm as confident as I can be without making chips. I did want to make chips tonight, but it's like 1 a.m. And although it would be nice to make a couple parts tonight, my brain and body is telling me that I'm too tired, and I don't want to break the machine by doing something dumb. So I will check back in with you guys tomorrow, and we'll see if this works.